there's a short life in
Why do you think that is? What the creative side is?
Well, because losing out money, you got to take. You're going through so much to try and deal with life.
Don't trust nobody. In Hollywood specifically, when you get there, a lot of people don't know how to say no. That's the difference between New York City and California.
The entertainment world thrives on glitz, glamour, and the air of untouchable power that its biggest players exude. But when that carefully crafted image begins to crack, the fallout can be explosive. That's exactly what happened when Terrence Howard, a man who spent decades navigating the murky waters of Hollywood, sat down for an unassuming podcast interview and unleashed a tidal wave of allegations that no one saw coming. What started as a conversation about his career quickly spiraled into a jaw-dropping exposé on Sean Diddy Combs, a man whose reputation has long been cloaked in whispers and side eyes. And it wasn't just Diddy who found himself under fire. Young Miami, the City Girls rapper whose high-profile connection to Diddy painted her as the ultimate stick-around-or-fly, was suddenly thrust into the spotlight for reasons far darker than anyone could have imagined.
Did you ever have the opportunity where you got invited and you said no to it?
Hell yeah.
What was the consequences when you said no?
Puffy invited me for weeks, asking me to come and teach him how to, wanted me to be his acting coach for a while. Go there and he's sitting around just looking. I'm like, okay, what's the material you want to work on? He's just looking at me.
Terrence Howard didn't just spill tea, he poured gasoline on an already smoldering fire. In his measured yet cutting tone, he described a series of interactions with Diddy that were equal parts bizarre, unsettling, and downright incriminating. According to Howard, Diddy had repeatedly invited him to collaborate under the guise of acting coaching or music brainstorming sessions. But every time Howard showed up expecting professionalism, he was met with something else entirely, an atmosphere charged with unspoken intentions that made his skin crawl. Howard didn't mince words. He painted Diddy as a man who operated with an agenda, one that seemed less about talent and projects and more about power plays and manipulation. The implications were clear. Diddy wasn't just crossing lines, he was erasing them entirely.
Will you help me? I want to hear your music. So I come over there and I play the music. And he's sitting there, just looking at me, like waiting. Okay. So then my assistant was like, he wants to hang out with you next week. And I was like, for what? He's like, I think he's trying to you. That's what my assistant said. And I was like, oh, okay. Now I get it. So now no more communication.
Howard spoke of one particular encounter that left no room for ambiguity. He arrived at Diddy's home, prepared to discuss acting techniques, only to find himself in a setting that felt anything but professional. There were no scripts, no plans, no clear purpose, just Diddy sitting there watching him in a way that felt, as Howard put it, off. When Howard tried to pivot the conversation back to work, Diddy's demeanor shifted from vague to practically predatory, and Howard's instincts told him it was time to leave. What's more, Howard claimed he wasn't the only one who'd been drawn into this web under false pretenses. According to him, Diddy had a pattern of inviting men to his infamous gatherings, only for them to leave with their confidence and sometimes their dignity shattered. It was a damning portrait of someone who, Howard suggested, wielded power like a weapon.
Now you know to be hands-off with somebody. A number of producers come in and make the approach, and you threaten to punch them in the mouth, or threaten to knock their head off for talking to you or looking at you like you're a woman. When you approach a real man about his masculinity, you're going to get a real reaction back. It's a difference when a guy walks in a room and when a man walks into a room. And a man don't take the same things that a guy will accept.
And then there was young Miami. As Diddy's most visible companion in recent years, she was already a lightning rod for controversy, but Howard's revelations cast her in an even more troubling light. He alleged that she wasn't just a bystander at Diddy's infamous parties, she was a participant, and not in the way fans might hope. According to Howard, Miami wasn't just attending these gatherings, she was allegedly complicit in whatever went down behind closed doors. Howard's claims hinted at a dynamic where Miami's role extended beyond arm candy, suggesting she may have been a key player in facilitating some of the more questionable activities that allegedly took place at these events. And if that weren't enough, Howard dropped an even bigger bombshell. He wasn't the only one raising questions about Miami's involvement. Others in Hollywood, he claimed, had noticed the same patterns, but were too afraid or too invested to speak out.
Look at Diddy, for instance. Mm-hmm. Let's take a look at him. Mm-hmm. Let's take a look at, he has videos. He has videos of the parties. Now, what I've heard, which I don't know how much of it is in mainstream media, I don't really follow the story that much, But what I've heard from friends that are attorneys, friends of mine that have represented me before, agents and so on, is there's a bidding war going on.
This wasn't the first time Diddy's parties had been scrutinized, but Howard's testimony added a chilling layer of specificity. He described a world where the lines between business and pleasure were blurred to the point of erasure, where attendees were expected to play along or risk being ostracized. According to Howard, the parties weren't just about indulgence, they were about control. Money, fame, and influence were the currencies of choice, and Diddy, as the host, held all the cards. But Howard wasn't buying what Diddy was selling. He made it clear that he'd refuse to play along, even when it meant losing opportunities and burning bridges. And that, he claimed, was the real reason his Hollywood career had stalled. It wasn't about talent or temperament. It was about his refusal to compromise his principles.
I've lost businesses because I don't bend over in that way. I don't compromise. I don't play roles. I don't kiss a man. I don't do that because the man card means everything.
Howard's comments sent shockwaves through the industry. Fans were divided. Some hailed him as a whistleblower, while others accused him of seeking attention. Industry insiders, meanwhile, scrambled to either distance themselves from Diddy or double down on their loyalty. For his part, Diddy remained tight-lipped, but the silence spoke volumes. As the allegations gained traction, more and more people began to question what had really been happening at those parties, and who else might have been involved. Young Miami, who had previously shrugged off criticism with the confidence of someone who knew the game, suddenly found herself at the center of a storm she couldn't control. Her social media posts became less frequent, her interviews more guarded. It was as if the weight of Howard's words had shifted something fundamental in her public persona.
To not be involved with a famous singer, to not come out, here's the price. And that they're just selling to the individuals that are in those. This is what I heard. They're selling those videos. So if you're Tommy X, and Tommy X is a big, big movie star, and he was at some of the Diddy parties. He was in one of those bedrooms with 3 other men, and he's happily married to a woman, and blah. Tommy doesn't want that video to come out.
And then there was 50 Cent, the self-proclaimed king of pettiness, who wasted no time inserting himself into the drama. Known for his long-standing feud with Diddy, 50 saw Howard's revelations as an opportunity to fan the flames. He claimed to have receipts, footage to be exact, that could blow the whole thing wide open. Whether or not he actually had anything didn't seem to matter. The mere suggestion was enough to send fans into a frenzy. 50's involvement added a layer of chaos to an already volatile situation, turning what might have been a niche Hollywood scandal into a full-blown media spectacle. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know, what did 50 have? And more importantly, why was he so gleeful about it?
On a documentary, I think a lot of people thought that he was just joking around. It turns out he's not. So this is actually a real project that's being made under his G-Unit movie. And
as Howard's interview continued to circulate, the ripple effects became impossible to ignore. Other actors and musicians began to speak out, some corroborating his claims, others offering their own stories of discomfort and unease around Diddy. The allegations took on a life of their own, snowballing into a narrative that felt both inevitable and shocking. Diddy, once the untouchable mogul, was now facing questions he couldn't afford to ignore. And young Miami, who had built her brand on confidence and control, suddenly seemed vulnerable in a way that fans had never seen before. The entertainment industry thrives on reinvention, on the idea that no matter how bad things get, there's always a way to bounce back. But as the spotlight burned brighter on Diddy and Miami, it became clear that this wasn't just another scandal to be swept under the rug. This was something deeper, something darker, a reckoning that threatened to upend everything they had built. And as more voices joined the chorus, the question wasn't just about what had already happened. It was about what might still be lurking in the shadows, waiting to come to light.
I'll tell you, I don't know how much, I don't like to say things that I know unless I see it. That there's a little difference, you know. But was it discussed? Was there descriptions from people I know that were at those? Yes, but here's another thing. So how many of these big entertainment parties and over the years and everything, with as successful as you are, have you been around? Does anyone ever come up to you at a certain hour and say, okay, it's time to go? At those parties they did.
And just when you think the scandal couldn't possibly get messier, it does. Because this isn't just about Terrence Howard's jaw-dropping accusations or even the unsettling dynamics between Diddy and young Miami. No, this is about a decades-long pattern, a tangled web of power, control, and whispered allegations that have been following Diddy like a shadow. It's not just one party, one incident, or one awkward interaction. It's a history. And that history, it's darker and more twisted than anyone could have imagined.
End of the day, just to tell the truth, so hopefully we can get down to the bottom of this. I'm 100%, the charges against me are 100% false, and hopefully due to time, we'll start to see that.
Diddy's reputation as the ultimate party king has always been a double-edged sword. Sure, the allure of his glitzy, no-expense-spared gatherings has been a magnet for celebrities, socialites, and anyone wanting to rub shoulders with hip-hop royalty. But behind the velvet ropes and the curated playlists was something else entirely. A world where the rules didn't apply, and the boundaries were constantly shifting. For years, there have been murmurs about what really went down at these events, but they were always brushed off as gossip, the kind of rumors that come with the territory when you're at the top. Now those rumors have a spotlight on them, and they're impossible to ignore. What's especially chilling is that these aren't just isolated stories from disgruntled ex-collaborators or spiteful rivals. The pattern is clear. For every over-the-top birthday bash or headline-grabbing New Year's celebration, there's a darker undercurrent. Insiders describe environments where the line between guest and prey blurred, where attendees were expected to play along or risk being blacklisted. And it wasn't just about influence, it was about control. Diddy, they say, didn't just want to host the party, he wanted to own the room, dictate the energy, and ensure that everyone knew exactly who held the power. The problem? That kind of control doesn't come without casualties.
People I don't think realized was he had cameras all over the place, unbeknownst to them. And now he has all that footage, supposedly. This is what I'm told. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens if, you're a huge, iconic, TV star or movie star, and you're in some very, very...
Young Miami's role in all of this adds another layer of complexity. On the surface, she was the ultimate +1, glamorous, confident, and unapologetically bold. But as more details emerge, her presence at these events starts to look less like coincidence and more like strategy. Court documents, insider accounts, and whispers from the Hollywood grapevine suggest that she wasn't just attending the parties, she was an integral part of them. Some even allege that she played a hand in orchestrating the more questionable aspects of these gatherings. And if that's true, it raises some serious questions about her level of involvement and what she might have seen, heard, or done to keep her spot in Diddy's orbit.
If you're a city girl, go get you a bad boy so you can act bad, because we acting bad. I'm something, you heard?
We just enjoying life, living our fucking best.
But here's where it gets even murkier. Diddy's infamous freak-offs, as they've been dubbed by some insiders, weren't just the stuff of tabloid headlines. According to those who claim to have been there, these events were less about celebration and more about spectacle, a carefully curated display of excess designed to both impress and intimidate. Guests were reportedly handpicked, their participation often contingent on their willingness to comply with the unwritten rules of the night. And those rules? Let's just say they didn't leave much room for personal boundaries. Witnesses describe scenes that sound like something out of a surreal fever dream, where the lines between fantasy and reality blurred in ways that left some people questioning their own experiences.
I'm not sure. I don't buy for a minute that he's going to prison without getting out of here somewhere and stashing $2 billion or whatever. I think he has that kind of power, meaning Sean himself. But remember, it goes a lot deeper than that.
And the silence until now has been deafening. For years, Diddy's closest allies and collaborators have stayed loyal to the point of self-sabotage, choosing to weather the storm rather than risk their own positions of power. But as more details come to light, that loyalty is starting to crumble. Some of his former associates who once refused to speak on record are now negotiating exclusive deals with media outlets and publishing houses. The promise of a lucrative tell-all or a high-profile expose seems to be outweighing the fear of retaliation. It's as if the dam has finally broken, and the flood of revelations is only just beginning. One former employee who worked as part of Diddy's security detail recently hinted that they witnessed things they can't unsee. The employee, now retired, described an environment where even staff members felt they were walking on eggshells. The power imbalance wasn't just between Diddy and his guests, it extended to everyone in his orbit. You didn't question him, the employee said. You did what you were told, or you found yourself out of a job. This culture of compliance, they suggested, was as much about self-preservation as it was about loyalty. What's even more telling is how some of Diddy's peers are reacting. In recent weeks, several high-profile figures who were once regulars at his events have begun to distance themselves publicly. Some have deleted old photos and posts, while others have issued carefully worded statements about their limited involvement. It's a classic case of damage control, but it also raises an important question. If so many people are scrambling to rewrite their narrative. What does that say about what they knew and what they chose to ignore?
They once worked together a long time ago. They're not friends now. They don't like each other. And yeah, 50 has taken every shot, especially when Diddy has been down.
And then there's the matter of the tapes. Ooh, yes, the tapes. Because if there's one thing more powerful than money in Hollywood, it's leverage. And nothing gives you leverage like having people on camera doing things they'd rather the world never see. Multiple insiders suggest that Diddy wasn't just hosting these events, he was documenting them. Whether it was for his own amusement as a way to relive the night's highlights, or as a means of maintaining control over those who attended, the existence of these recordings is one of the worst-kept secrets in the industry. And now, with 50 Cent hinting that he has access to at least some of this footage, the stakes couldn't be higher. But let's not forget the legal angle, because while the industry might be good at keeping its secrets, the law is a different story. As the FBI continues its investigation into Diddy's alleged activities, the focus has shifted from the parties themselves to the infrastructure that supported them. How were these events funded? Who helped organize them? And perhaps most importantly, who else knew what was going on behind the scenes? Because make no mistake, if even half of the allegations are true, Diddy wasn't acting alone. There's an entire ecosystem of enablers, collaborators, and silent witnesses whose roles are just starting to come into focus.
Card.
What is that? What do you mean by that?
You give up your ability, your right to being a man. A man don't take it, a man gives it. So when you give up that man card, you don't get that back.
Are you saying what I think you're saying?
No, I'm saying what I'm saying.
And let's talk about the enablers for a second, because for years, Diddy's inner circle has been described as a fortress, loyal, tight-lipped, and fiercely protective of their leader. But as the pressure mounts, cracks are beginning to show. Former employees, disgruntled associates, and even some longtime friends are starting to speak out, either anonymously or through their lawyers. And what they're saying paints a picture of a man who ruled his empire with an iron fist, using fear, loyalty, and cold hard cash to keep everyone in line. But now, with the walls closing in, those same tactics are starting to backfire. People who once stayed silent out of fear are realizing that the risk of speaking out might be worth it if it means distancing themselves from the fallout.
That was all the people that went to the Puffy parties. That was all the people that did all those things thinking that there was never going to be a consequence for what they were doing. Get punked out and pimped out by some greater desire. You shouldn't have a greater desire than being a man. So I believe that's a big problem with a lot of the actors out there because they get fluid. And next thing you know, once you go fluid,
And then, as if the situation couldn't get any more surreal, there's Young Miami's own legal troubles, or at the very least, the allegations that she too crossed lines that shouldn't have been crossed. Multiple lawsuits have named her as an active participant in some of the more troubling aspects of Diddy's world, whether it's transporting questionable substances, facilitating certain activities, or simply turning a blind eye to what was happening around her. The accusations are piling up. And while Miami has vehemently denied any wrongdoing, the court of public opinion is far less forgiving. The once unshakable confidence that defined her public persona now seems to be cracking under the weight of scrutiny.
So I'm not speaking on it because I don't care. I'm not getting into it. I don't. Yeah.
But here's the thing, for every shocking revelation, there's an even bigger question looming in the background. What else don't we know? Because if Hollywood has taught us anything, it's that the first wave of allegations is rarely the last. As more people come forward, as more details emerge, and as the legal battles play out in court, it's hard not to wonder just how deep this rabbit hole goes. Is this the beginning of the end for Diddy and his carefully constructed empire? Or is it just the tip of an iceberg that's been lurking beneath the surface for years? And on that note, I've got to hear your thoughts. What do you make of Young Miami's alleged involvement? Do you think 50 Cent's claims about the tapes hold any weight? And most importantly, how do you see this all playing out? Let us know in the comments, and trust us, you're going to want to stick around for what's coming next. This story's far from over.